We'll wait for another 3 minutes. I see people joining, and then we'll start in 3 minutes.
Yes, sir. Sure, sir.
Hi, sir. How are you?
Hi, I'm good.
Sir, Shashwat.
Oh, Shashwat, how's everything going, Shashwat?
सर अच्छा चल रहा है सब कुछ घर पे ही हैं अपन तो
Yeah, okay. घर पे ही हो 1 साल से?
होपफुली आगे भी शायद घर पे ही हैं।
अच्छा ही है घर पे है तो।
हाँ मैं तो अब चलूँ आदत सी हो गई।
Okay, I got the YouTube live link. Yeah, I think we can start now.
So, shall we start?
Yeah, we should start now. Okay, I'll share my screen.
Machine intelligence is the...
Yeah, continue.
Okay, sir.
Continue.
Machine intelligence is the last invention that humanity will ever make. Hello and good evening, everyone. I'm Snehal Ved, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all to this workshop on the ever growing field of machine learning. This would be the first workshop under the Essentials Plus series, under which we'll be organizing workshops on various important topics. So today's workshop will be comprising the basics of ML and would be carried by Mr. Prithvi Singh Chauhan sir, who is a prestigious alumnus of IIT ISM Dhanbad and is currently pursuing his masters in petroleum engineering at Texas A&M University. He is also working as a research fellow at the MCERI group in the field of reservoir simulation and its integration with data science and machine learning tools. So, on behalf of the SPE IIT ISM student chapter, I once again welcome you, sir. Now, I would request all the attendees to keep their audio and video off. For the audience, if you have any queries in the middle of the session, you may type them in the chat box and we'll bring them up at the end. With this, I would request Prithvi sir to start today's workshop. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction, Snehal. Hello, everyone. I'm Prithvi. I'm currently pursuing my master's in petroleum engineering and working as a research fellow in at MCERI group here. And my research specialization is reservoir simulation and its integration with data science and machine learning. So it's been 6 months. I shifted to US and I'm learning new stuff. So I thought of sharing with you all. my aim to do this workshop was to share whatever I have been learning and give you a glimpse of applications that I have learned and how you guys can also work on it. It's not a rocket science, but it's the amount of exposure that uh, that students are lacking in, uh, and the applications that students are unaware of, which I think if they get exposure to that level, they'll be much more curious and interested to learn uh, these tools and implement them. So I share my screen. Am I audible enough? Or there's some lag?
No, sir, you're audible.
Okay. So uh, just a minute. So my aim is to not teach the core Python, but to teach you guys the superficial tools and knowledge and share resources for you to learn in depth. I am not a Python expert, but I'm trying to learn, and these tools are something which are too deep in knowledge, and there's no end to it. So there's so much of statistics, mathematics, and machine learning that there's no end to it. So most important thing when you start learning is to know what to learn and which sources you should learn from. There are many books on machine learning in oil and gas. You can search for Dr. Mishra's or Dr. Datta Gupta, Dr. Shrikanta Mishra. So you really need to focus on what tools you should learn rather than learning everything in deep. You won't get anywhere with that. So I extended the last 2 days by some days because I think you should be given enough time to learn the resources that I share and the links and the websites, and also go through the notebooks, have some hands-on experience. You cannot learn Python or do any of these projects if you're not doing it on your own or trying new stuff. I have given a lot of links in those notebooks where you can learn in depth if it's really interesting to you or you want to explore more. So for first day, I'll just go through the content. For the first day, I just teach you Python basics. Not so again, there are so many things that we can cover, but time limitation and the scope of this workshop is limited uh, to the project and the tools that I want to share. So first will be just Python basics, getting you guys familiar with the the interface, the notebook, the Python language, the syntax, what to do, what not to do, sharing the resources from where you can learn in advance. Then Python has its own element libraries. Python is a very big community which has open, people can share openly their resources and tools, and we learn the most important libraries, pandas, numpy, and a little bit of matplotlib because yeah, it'll help you in plotting and visualization. And data pre-processing. So what happens is oil and gas data is in a very large space. It's petabytes and terabytes of data that we guys have to work with, geoscientists and petrophysicists and in general petroleum engineers. So the problem that most of the time we face is that the data is not as we expect it to be. It's not uniform. It's not normalized. There are a lot of missing data. There's a lot of ambiguity, outliers. Outliers means data which are not fitting with the trend. So we need to do data processing, which is a very important part to actually apply machine learning, which most people don't uh, take care of. Then data visualization. So you must have seen a lot of interactive plots, a lot of amazing visualizations that people are doing these days with Python, and so Seaborn and Matplotlib are those libraries which will help you understand all this. Then we'll start regression. So regression is a type of method which helps you understand the nature of the curve using some equations or some statistics, and then we'll go on final project. So final project really depends on how I see you guys learning these stuff that I'm teaching you before till day 5, and how are you guys picking up and understanding if the pace too much or it's too less. So really depends. So and yeah, so make sure you have the latest version of the file that I've shared. You must have received it by email till now. Uh, I'll start with the basics. So you can create a folder. So okay, I hope most of the guys have downloaded Anaconda, from where you can download Jupyter Notebook. There are two versions, which is like a notebook, and then there is one which is online IDE. You can download both of them. Both of them work fine. So you can start with creating a new folder from here, and then it will drop down here. You can change the name and do the settings. From there, you can go to the workshop folder that I have created for this workshop, and then you can upload the files from here. So I think most of you have uploaded this because I want you guys to have to learn with me rather than just going through the content and like any other virtual class in your college. So uh, yeah, let's and then click on this. It will start running automatically. The kernel starts running. So yeah, let's start. So Python has been updated to a lot of versions till now, Python 1, Python 2, Python 3. And there have been a little bit of changes in all the updates that have been done. So the latest version I'm using is Python 3.7.4. You can update it easily. I'll tell you later in the coming time how it's done. So for the first, let's start with print hello world. Uh, so you can create a box. So the box you are seeing are the code cells, which are executable blocks of code as I've written. So you can type all the code here and you can run it. So the basic version to run is just to go into the cell and run the cell. So that's that's the that's the basic way. And then there is another way which is shift plus enter. So you can run this code, you see it jumps to another one. And the 17, 99, 100 you are seeing is the number of times that the block has been executed. So the green part shows that the code block is editable and the blue part shows that it's not. Now let's clear out all the outputs so that you can understand. Yeah. So the basic way is to the basic one is print. Then this is a function. This is an inbuilt function in Python, so you don't need to import anything or get anything new or any new library. And just the way you write is that you just write your string, your line here, and then you can just print it. It can be any integer or number. So that's the basic one. And you'll see many cool stuff here in Python. The basic ones like import time dot sleep. I'll explain you later what are these. I'm just telling you the applications that you can have. So you'll see I've kept imported time and then time dot sleep. It means it'll take 10 seconds to run this code block. Then you can create functions, which I'll teach you later. I have also added the basics of Jupyter Notebook. So learning the shortcuts and the key functions of any notebook is really important. There are a lot of ways you can code in Python. You have Python, Jupyter. I mean, there are a lot of them. There's no end to it. So I usually use Notebook because it's organized for me. And you can learn about the notebook from here. I've shared it, and you can learn the basics of Python from here if you are interested to know why Python is needed, why Python is on rise these days, and know about more about Python as a language. So as I said, green outline here you see is the edit mode, and the blue outline that you'll see is the command mode. You can run a cell with Control plus Enter. I hope you guys are trying your notebooks with me. It'll be really helpful and you'll have much more confidence and understanding of what I'm doing. Let's start with the basic one. So as you can see, like I can create a lot of variables in here, just randomly, but there is no value assigned to it. So the way we do is that we use the variable and then we assign a value. So what happens is in the background is that after we run this code, suppose I take this here, after I execute this code using Shift plus Enter, you can see no output has come, but the code has run. So let me just run for the X. So you can see 1 here. This is because the value of 1 is stored in X. Now you'll see if I do X equal to 5 here, the answer would be 5 because 1 was stored here and then it goes line by line. The codes run line by line. And then y equals 2. And then again, X was replaced by 5 instead of 1. So you can see here. Now we know X is 5 and Y is 2. So there are a lot of ways like you can, really write a sentence, include variables in it. So one of them is star D, percentage D. This variable is associated with X and this one is associated with Y. So you can see I've written percentage D here signifies that the first percentage is related to 5 and then another one is 2. Now to check the version that you have on any IDE, I don't know, maybe you are not using the same notebook version that I am, or you are using it offline. So you can just import platform, import the version, and then you can see it's 3.7.4. And you can also use this version to find the system version of Python your desktop or PC is using. Then, we can see to run a cell and enter the next block. So you saw I was running a cell and then I shifted to the next block automatically. You use Control B, so I'll just use it here. So it's here. It shifts to another one. And then Control S to save file. A lot of time what happens is that we run a simulation or a model and then we forget to save the outputs of the file or the changes we have made in the code. So always, if you are running a long code or you need outputs, sometimes it takes days to complete it and then you're not able to save it. You lose all the output files. So you can even do this here, save and checkpoint. So it updates here last checkpoint a few seconds ago. So these small things will matter in long run because you need to know shortcuts and need to remember you have to save files or shift to code blocks or run it without actually using your mouse. So Python has various ways you can store the values. You can see I've just written p equal to 2 here, and then to check the type of variable, you can use this function named as type. So you just use type and type function for p, and then you can see it's int, which is integer. You can also use it for other variables that we use generally. So here you can see I've created a list of numbers. I'll explain your list further ahead. It's just an example that I wanted to give. So you see I've changed the variable type here. P here was integer before, now it's list. Then you can see it's updated to list. Then there is one functionality of list that we can access the number inside those lists using this function. So you see here. So a thing about Python is that, or any other code language is that the numbering starts from 0. So this is 0th number, this is first number, this is second number in the list. So fourth is the 0th number in a list, fifth is the first, sixth is the second, seventh is the fourth. A lot of time people associate the first number with number one because it's the conventional way that we have been using. So if you see p equal to 2, I mean, we want to access the variable which has rank 2 in list p. Is it 0, 1, 2? So we go into the six, which is 6. Then you can also store a string. String is format of words that we can use, or even numbers, and a combination of them to store them in a variable. So I've just written IIT as Dhanbad here, and then you can access the fourth variable, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's I. Then you can also create a list with integers and strings. Integer is number, string is a list of letters and alphabets. So you can use this, and then you can see I want to access first variable in X list. So that is SPE. And you can see I wanted to ask Python that what is the type of variable in list X with first rank. So that is string, which is SPE. Now, if you want to add numbers in the list, you use this function called as append. Append actually means adding numbers to the list. So it's just you have to write x dot append. The thing with Python is that you use dot when the function is internally used uh, and supported by the function. So x dot append 5, it will just add an extra element to the list as written. So you can see the fifth, the variable 5 is added to the end of the list, not the first, second, or in the between. It's added at the end. You can add it again, maybe some other one, and then it's added to the last. You can add it in the front or any other position. There are other ways that you can find. You can add it, but you can learn all that from the resources that I have shared, which is, I mean, this is not needed right now, so I'm not sharing it right now. And there is a special variable array, which is being used in almost all coding languages, object-oriented languages. So you must be seeing these words, packages, and libraries I'm talking about. So a little bit about that. Uh, so uh, is an Python has a lot of libraries. Libraries are a set of tools that you use to use a particular function. Maybe you want to use the time series or use time function to, like after 5 seconds you want this, after 5 seconds you want that. You import that library which has those tools to make it happen. So that is a library or a package. So Numpy package is an arithmetic tool, you can say, in Python, which has all the arithmetic and mathematical and statistical tools. There are more advanced libraries than Numpy, which you can use. So import Numpy as NP. We wrote NP to really reduce it, not for any other reason. Like you can just write N also, but NP is the conventional way. So we use Numpy as NP so that there is a uniformity in code. If your code is being read by someone else, you can understand what is NP and not any other variable. They import this library NumPy as NP, and then now you have your library or tools loaded in your notebook, and now you can use them as per your convenience. So you convert this list of number to array, and then you store using NumPy, and then you store it in a variable named ARR. It can be anything, XYZ or anything. So now you have stored the list of numbers as array using NumPy in XYZ. And now you can use XYZ. So you can see the list is printed here, which is an array. Now, there's a difference between array and list, which we'll see further. You can also access the variables inside array, and it can be using, the same function that we have used in list. So it's 0, 1, 2. The second variable is 5. But there are some internal functions in Numpy, in array, which we got from Numpy, which are being used frequently. You can see it here as we can see the sum function. So it just adds all the values inside this array to get the sum. You can also calculate the shape of array sometimes. So right now you're seeing an array of one dimension. It's just one list. You can actually create a whole matrix of any dimension using array. So shape is needed sometimes to understand the dimension of the variables in array you are using. So I've also added a NumPy tutorial here if you want to know more about NumPy. But as long as the final project or the aim that I have decided, the content that I'm sharing is what needed exactly. It's for further curiosity and your practice that I'm adding all these links. It's not that you have to know them to understand what I'm teaching or for the final project. So you can see the array here has two lists. So it's a two-dimensional array, and I've stored this array in this variable. I can also so now you can see you want to maybe check something about this array. So you use escape plus B to add another code of block, empty code of block. And then you can just write hi a RR. And I can see the array comes here, right? And then if you want to check type function, it's a NumPy array. So, I mean, you can also
Sorry to
use,
interrupt you, sir. Sir,
yeah, tell me.
sorry to interrupt you, but some people are asking you to zoom a little bit.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Is this okay?
Yes, sir, this is fine.
Okay. Yeah, you could have told me earlier this. Okay. You want me to go through everything again, or should I start from here?
This is fine, sir. We can start from right. Like we can continue from here itself.
Okay. 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 So you can see here there are, you can see it as a matrix which has 2 rows and 3 columns. As I said before, this one had like 6 columns and 0 row, 1 row, which is null here. Then you must be confused about what is the difference between list and array. So as you can read, the list items can be anything, and each list element can have completely different type. That is the difference between a list and an array. You can also add 2 lists together, which will actually be, first list, then the elements of second list. And it depends on the order of addition you're doing. If it's B plus A, it'll be something else than A plus B. So the order of addition matters here. I can see it's 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, and it's making the whole list. You can also store this list in some other variable, and then you can check it by using escape plus B to add another cell, and then you can see the variable A plus B is stored in C, and now it's in C. Now there are a lot of internal functions that you will see that I'll be using in this workshop. You can see range 10 list. So range 10 is an internal function that is used to create series of number, and then we create that into list using this function list. You can create a list of numbers can create a string of numbers and make it a list using this function list. So you can see it's using numbers from 0 to 9, which is 10 numbers, and then creating it to a list. You can create another list. You can add the sum and then time it, the number of time it's taken. So you see this star indicates that it's processing it. It's not completed till now. And unless this is done, you cannot execute the next code. So you can see this function time it can actually tell you the amount of time that it's taking to add loop of numbers and then total loops and all the statistics about it. You'll have a much more idea, better clarity if you are using all these functions hands-on. The best way to learn Python would be to have a small project, start from there, and then you need to Google a lot. So there is no fixed set of resources that, that learn this or learn this book or go through this site and you'll be done with Python, or you'll have expertise on doing this project or application in oil and gas. You really need to just Google a lot of times and try hands-on. Now, now these are small things that you might be needing to document your code, or maybe use it and executing it. So you can see %s, and this denotes the variable that has to be assigned to the first one, and it's the order which matters here again. So you can just add any variable and use formatting. You can just assign the numbers or a string. So you can see that I've created two lists, and I'm just trying to plot CG, but it's not happening. So you must have got by now that the plot function is not working because the libraries or the tools that are needed to plot this are not still loaded or imported to the notebook. So just a small glimpse of what libraries is and how we use it. So right now you can see it's not plotting. It's showing the plot is not defined. It means our notebook doesn't even know what's plot. So it cannot do it. So we import a function, we import a library or a package named matplotlib, and we assign that name as PLT. So it's just assigning this name because we cannot write matplotlib.pyplot every time. So now this library has the tools to create a plot. Now I use CG again. I plot it using the PLT library, and then there is another function called show, which actually projects the plots. You can see the plots are here. You can actually add titles dot x title, and then add the variables here to get the x title, y title, and all that. So you can really, I'll tell you later about how we can add beautifications and labels to this plot. Now, after we have learned basic tools, addition, subtraction, and basic shortcuts, these are some tools which you will require all throughout your journey in Python and data science. Loops are always there. Functions will be always there. These are some very basic concepts which will really help you in long run. So I'll tell you the basic of it, and then you can learn more about the data types from this link. W3 Schools is a very good website if you want to learn basics. I've been using it, and I do reference it sometimes. You can see I created a list here with a lot of variables and a list and some addition. And you can see if I want to access the third element of this list, which is 0, 1, 2, 3. So it will get the list, which is the third element from this whole list. So you're creating a list, then a sublist. You can also create a sublist inside actually. So I'll tell you that later to access those numbers. So what is this? So first we access A33, which is this list. And then we access the third element of this list, third element of the third element. So which is 0, 1, 2, 3, which is 4. Now, this is the example of for loop. You can see for element in A, you are printing an element. So what happens is that this element in A is like a variable. You can actually use I also, that for I in A. So what happens is it goes step by step. For I equal to 0 was the element in A. It chooses that and then it prints. So that's what is happening. I will run from, so you can use Y. So Y will run from 0 to the end of elements in A and execute the functions inside the loop. Now, the thing with functions and loop is that we are actually making a new function. So we need to do the indentation part. You can see I'm using this symbol here to create, and this print has some space from the front, which is called indentation. Indentation is really important if you're creating functions because it defines which elements are inside those functions and which are not. So if I'm using print y here, you can see there is an error expected an indented block because we want this function to be inside and not outside. It doesn't work that way. So if you are using a for loop here, you need the next line to be the function of it. I mean, it cannot run this, and then again a loop. If you create an indentation here, you can see the for loops run. So indentation is important here. And you must be thinking, what if I do this here? So this is working because first you executed this function, and then after executing this function, you went to this function. So there is no ambiguity with which function to run and which line to run because you are organizing it. You are creating the flow for the code to run. And then, so it accesses the first y equal to 0, it accesses dk, and then it prints it. Then for y equal to 1, it gets 2 as the output, then it prints it, then 3, and then less, and then addition. So, and you can see that even for last print, we got 5. So what happens is that it ran through all the loop, and then in the last, the value of variable y was 5 from this list A. So that value is stored even now after the loop has ran over. And then, so even after learning this, after the loop is running, it still has value of 5 variables in stored y, and then in the end, we get the value 5 again. So you can also use enumerate, which is a kind of loop that you can use. There's a little bit of difference, which I'll explain you through sources or link if someone asks it. And then for element in A3, so you must have remembered that item 3 is this list, right? Now we are trying to access elements and in third element of list A, which is another list. So we choose an element and list and then print it. So element equal to 0, so it will go to the first element and then print it, and then accordingly it'll happen. Now you can also use len function, which is a short form of length, to to find the length of the list, which is 8 here. You can also create a list using this square bracket. You can read more about enumerate from this link I've shared. It won't be needed for this workshop, but then I wanted to share because it's a little bit different from for loop, but it's really helpful also. You can just read small definition I've kept here, that an enumerate method adds a counter to an interval and returns it in a form of an enumerate object. So it's 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 used in advanced variables like tuples and lists. Tuples won't be taught now. Tuples is a kind of function which is also used in storing variables like lists or array, but it's a little bit different conceptually and it has different applications. For now, it won't be needed. So I'm putting all these small unknown things in this notebook so that you are curious enough to Google it and learn. It's not needed, but then having a little bit of knowledge will help you understand other codes or other projects. So now let's use and create a small function. Just a minute. You can see I've created an empty list, B empty. You can check this by, so this is an empty list and it will show nothing. If I use this and try to get the output, it will be just an empty list. So B has an empty list stored in it. Now we go with I in A. A is the list that we have been using till now. And then we append, it means we are adding variables to list B. And that variable is variable in A multiplied by 2. So what happening is it takes the variable from A, then multiplies it with 2, and then adds it to the list B. So, and now we try to print the code we have to use. For loop, this, list, this, format IB. So we store I in this and B in this. And let's see. So let's go loop one by one in this loop. For I and A, so what's, we can just get the list A here. So for I in A, which is first element, we get I equal to 1, and then we multiply it by 2. So we have append 2, which is add the number 2 to this list. So it adds the number 2, and then list B is 2. Now, this is what happens every time loop runs, but for the next element. So now I is equal to 2, it goes to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it starts to multiply it with 2 and adds the numbers. Now you can see we have also added a string named outside. So after this loop is done, let me show you. So after this loop is done, you would see this list into 2 actually, because we are just multiplying by 2 and adding it to the empty list. So you can see here, right? And then we can add it outside. So you can see this, it's happening 2 times, right? That's because the value is stored already of list B, and then we are running this loop again would add another set of variables that we are using in this loop. So it actually, if I run the code a number of times, Python store values in the background. So you need to clear the output if you want to run the code again and you don't want the Python to store those values so that it may not have glitches like I have shown you now. Now you can create a list of words and letters, and if you want to access them, I'll print one by one. Or so you can see I in sample, it will go to ISM first, and then print ISM, then IIT, then SP, then SC. So this is what happened. Example of enumerate, you can actually access 2 variables together and assign them. I've created a sample again. And so just like array list, we also have dictionary as a variable, as a data type, which is being used. And dictionary has this function that it has a key and a value. So sometimes what happens is you have, suppose, variables from A to Z, and each variable has a different value, a key. So key is the A to Z, like the variable name, and the value is value. So if A is 2, A is 1, Z is like 26, 25. So if you want to access the value using the variable name that you have, we use dictionary. We created a dictionary here, and then you can see we have assigned these values to certain variables. So if ISM value is assigned to key 0, IIT value is assigned to key 1, and similarly this happens. And you can see the list, the dictionary that I've created for that. So this dictionary has value, the first element as 0 ISM. And this is not part of the value because it's just a way to express it in dictionary. It's not the part of value. Value is in ISM and 0 here. Similarly, we can access those values. We can assign different values in dictionary by using this function. So we use SAM1. So 1 is IIT here, if you see. And I replace this value with India, another variable, and you delete the value IIT stored in this dictionary. So now you have India instead of IIT here stored in the value. Now there's another loop which helps understand the logic. It helps filter out a lot of stuff, and this is something important that we'll be using. You can learn more about this in this link. So I created a small function for you to understand this if-else loop that we'll be using. So if the temperature is below 0, it's melting. It's just a normal logic. Like, so if the x is 0, it's 0, and if x is less than 0, it's freezing, right? So we store a variable x equal to 0 here. And now if x is greater than 0, so I mean, right now I have just kept the value. So if x is greater than 0, it will print melting, and it will jump all these loops because the if loop has been satisfied. Or else, so you can write else if as elif in Python. So it's actually two functions that we write together to decrease the code lines. So else if else, and if the loop is not satisfied, suppose x is not greater than 0, then else it goes to another loop. So it checks for this loop, and then it checks for this function, this condition, and then uh, and then it executes the output. So for x equal to 0, I think it will not satisfy this, so melting won't happen. Now it went to another loop, another if-else loop. Now x is equal to 0, so I think it will print 0, and then it will jump this loop because this has been satisfied. And then you can also check for like maybe 43. Now 43 is greater than 0, so it will print melting, and then the rest will be jumped. So now functions are used. There are sometimes problems which cannot be executed using the libraries and the packages we have already in the Python community. So we create new functions which are customizable to our variables, our algorithm, and the way we want to use them. So function is an important tool that we need to learn. So if you want to create a function, we use this notation called def, which is definition. You are defining a function. And this is the function, and these are the variables in it. And then you define the logic inside this function. You can see we have also created the indentation here to make sure that these lines of codes are actually part of this function we are creating. Now we use these variables to create some algorithm. It can be any algorithm that you want. And then return is the notation to give back the value of the output that we want from this function. So we are actually returning p, which is some of these variables that we input in this function. So we have created this function add3 to add three variables and then return the addition of that. I've created this function. I execute it. You can also, if you clear the output here, and you do this. So you saw what happened, right? I have not executed the code. I've cleared the output, but it's still the function is working. That's because the value has been stored already. So now we execute this code. You can see the add function is working that way. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4. You get 1, 2, 4 here. So what happened? It runs line by line. So let me just add a little bit more of the. So what happens is that now when we press shift plus enter, it goes to the first line, it prints hello, then it goes to add /3 underscore 3. And when it comes to this part, it actually jumps to this function. And then it takes these inputs. It runs through this function, and then the output is given through the second block of code. That's how it runs. If you're using a lot of functions and creating the definition above it, it actually goes to that function, executes the code, gets the output, and then comes back and gives the output again below. You can see hello and then 7. Now we cannot add a number to the string unless we change the binary codes of it, which is not needed. So you can see I just wanted to add 2m to 1, 4. It won't happen because you cannot add string to the number. You can also just change the variable names here. And then you can see it adds the value. So now you have created this handy function, which will just add 3 numbers at any point of time. So this is a basic one that I've used. You can create a lot of functions. Now, sometimes you can see I've created these text box, which are different from code blocks. You can see it's a very simple one. You use escape M to create a markdown box, which is used for text messages, and then execute it. There are a lot of ways you can actually, create bullet points and different type of bullet points. You can decrease the size value of the text using markdown code. So markdown is also here in markdown. You can add the code here or you can add the markdown code block, or you can use escape plus M. You can add headings and everything. Now I've created this small function that I want you all to learn step by step and understand what's happening line by line. So for now, I'll give you a little bit of hint about it, and I think after that you can learn it on your own. I've taught you enough to learn this. So I've imported 2 libraries, time and random. I've kept the value of turns as 10. Now you can run this code and then you can see, hello, let's play hangman. We will have 10 turns. So I want you guys to really learn what's happening in this code line by line. I've taught you print function, list, empty variable, while, for, if. So it's actually a very basic function that is being used in it. And you can actually break down the code in different code blocks to learn what's happening line by line. So this is a kind of homework that I want you to learn. You'll have a very good uh, confidence once you understand this code if you are beginning now to learn Python. Uh, that's just pretty much it for now. Uh, you can, I think we are close to the time, right? Hello.
Yes, sir. So we can take up some questions.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's you guys can ask me any question that you feel like may or may not be related to Python, may be related to petroleum engineering or any other topic that I can help you with. And always you can reach out to me on my email that I've provided at the first part of the blog, uh, this ID, to let me know if you have any specific questions or any particular interest or idea that you're working on. So yeah, let me know in the chat box.
So there are already some questions in the chat box. So shall I read it for you, or you can access it?
Yeah, I read it. It's fine. So I use the thing about learning two languages is that you need to know which language is really needed for you to learn. Definitely C or learning C++ will help you because C++ are very crude languages. You really don't have those kind of tools like or that kind of interpretability or easiness to learn. Python is pretty much like English. Uh, Python was made integrating English and maths. That's how they wanted to increase the outreach of the community that can learn to code using Python. C++ and C are very robust languages. They are very high computational languages. Even now we are coding in C++ because it takes a very less computational time. It has very good compilers and it's a robust one. So you can learn C++ to understand the basics of coding. But if you are looking forward to being into data science or learning Python tools or libraries or do neural networks. So if you want to train a neural network model in Python, it's very easy. You just need to import libraries and tune the parameters, and then you can run it. But if you want to do neural networks in C++ or C, it's going to be a really, really hard work. But then it depends on what kind of language you have to use in long run. But I'll recommend to learn basics from C++, and then shift to Python if that's what you want to do, if you're trying to learn C. Uh, but yeah, as far as application goes, I think uh, you'll have you can learn Python and you won't lose out anything, definitely. So next question is Bhavish. Yeah, that's so I think the ML course that Andrew NG was Octave based, and yeah, it's in MATLAB, I think. You can actually go to the new machine learning course that Andrew NG has put out, which is on this series of deep learning AI, which has like 6, 7 courses of machine learning and deep learning. So first course is based on ML, and he has told that this course is based in Python, and this includes the basic of ML, which he has taught before 10 years back. So you can start from there. And actually, Coursera ML course is not the only source to learn. What happens most of the time, and even happened with me, was I started learning this ML course of Andrew NG, and I couldn't relate it to the application or the practicality of the things I'm learning, and then I dropped it off maybe 6th or 7th week. I didn't pick it up after that. So that's what I told. It really matters the the tools and how do you want to use it, what's your aim. And in the course maybe too much of statistics for you guys to understand and really understand the application or apply to your studies. There are a lot of other other sources that you can learn from. There is one blog called Towards Data Science. I've shared the link in the notebook where you can learn. And it has like, different type of blogs, even on oil and gas, geosciences, reservoir engineering. So you can learn from there. Uh, yeah. Yeah. Any other question?
No, sir. This is it for today, I think.
Okay. So let me
Sir,
know.
sorry,
Yeah,
sir. There is
sure.
one question. Where are the uses of ML or DL in the petro?
Sorry, where are the users of?
I think he means what are the uses of machine learning and deep learning in petroleum engineering specifically?
Oh, petroleum engineering has been all about machine learning till now. It's just that we haven't been using this buzzword. Like my whole work is actually based on machine learning and coding because we just gave it the rise of machine learning is so much that now people are like, oh, we have been using this. Let's say it ML now. So that's what has been happening. And machine learning has a lot of applications on neural networks. You can actually go through the student paper contest was held last year. I think we 10 were there, and 5 or 6 of them were actually based on machine learning and neural networks. And the guy who won was also working on neural networks. Machine learning can be used. So you must have, I don't know how much you know. So when you're trying to estimate the reserves, the production rate, the the oil flow and the water flow, you actually try to forecast this model, which you have created using historical data, and you try to project it 10 years ahead, like what will happen 10 years ahead using the data and the model that you have created. So machine learning is, it tries to understand the data that you have used before, and it tries to use physics, and then it tries to forecast it. So machine learning is being used heavily in that. Even CMG, if you go to the background code, you'll see that there's a difference between physics-based model and machine learning models. Machine learning models are purely based on the data that you have provided. It may or may not be applicable to physics-based models. There's a lot of difference between physics-based models and machine learning models. And the problem with our industry is that our industry has been more of physics-based modeling. It uses these fluid equations and heat equations and flow equations, and then it uses those equations to model. So it hasn't really accepted the machine learning models and the neural networks till now, but it's rising. People are trying to integrate both of them and then try to give the output. So yeah, definitely there are a lot of models. You can just search neural networks on the one Petro search bar. You can see the number of papers that have been being used. Just type machine learning in one Petro, you can see what's happening. Yeah. Anything else?
So there is one more question in the chat box. Why Python can't we do ML with C or C++?
Why can't Python? Sorry.
Why Python can't we do ML with C or C++? I mean, sir, I think he is asking about why can't we use C or C++ for ML?
Actually, you can do C++, and you can do machine learning with both of them. You can do with any language. It's the amount of lines of code and the complexity of the code that will really make it difficult for you to code. Python has its own set of templates and tools that we just, we download the package, we just directly use those tools instead of actually creating those tools. you can do same stuff with C++ and C. It's just the interpretability. Interpretability means the code that you have made, how easily can you change it or read it or modify it at a given point of time. Sometimes you need to change some codes, and that is difficult with C++ because the lines of code will be very large, and then it will be really complex to understand. With Python, it's really easy. You put the variable values. If you want to change something, just change the variables or change the parameters, and then it's just that easy. That's the difference between the languages. It's not that you cannot do it. It's just the amount of efforts, interpretability, the long lines of code, which there's a very big difference between both of them.
Sir, there is one more question in the chat box. I think you can read it.
Okay, so escape plus, let me share my screen. So escape plus M is actually a markdown that we use. Let me tell you. You can see there's a difference between, I'll tell you. You can see this is a line of text and this is a executable code cell. So this is a code cell and this is a markdown cell. Sometimes you need to put headings to, for people to understand your code or comment something. So that is markdown. You actually create a cell which is just used for text heading or making someone understand the code. It's not the part of the code, executable code, but it's to make it more interpretable, to make people understand using the headings. So if you are using this, it's actually a code here, right? You use escape plus enter, and then you can execute the code. Markdown is actually creating the heading. So if I reduce this, you can see it's just a line. If I want to make it a bigger heading, I do this. So that's what I've told here. Like you can actually create a range of headings here and then execute it using shift plus enter. Now, if I create a code, if I do escape plus M here, it'll actually turn into a line of text rather than an executable algorithmic code like this. So now you can see it's just a line of text. It's not part of the executable code now. And you can do escape plus Y to change it into a code cell from a markdown cell. So that's the difference. I'm finding it very difficult with data sets. Oh yes, so what happens is that the data sets that companies are using are in a very large format. They have a lot of variables. So what you can do is, Nathan, that go through a paper which has done the work that you are interested in, see what kind of data they have used. Obviously, it will be an open source data because people are trying to, people are on the same page. They're trying to learn using different data sets. You can find data sets through Equinor Wolf data. Now there is a new data being released by UK government, and then you can definitely find a lot of open source data. And I'll tell you a way in the projects of how you can actually use data to learn learn machine learning. Sometimes you need to remove the data, create unknown data, and then work on it so that you can understand how model is working. Because you're not in a company, you're not getting new data, you're not having new variables to understand. So you create your own data actually. Final project would be kind of based on Equinor Wolf data for you to understand how you can use this data set to learn more. So deep learning application in NLP and computer vision, yes. you must have seen, if you have been to training fields or to any training to resort to oil field or gas field, that this is just one of the applications that I'm telling you, that you can see there are a lot of gauges, right? Like the flow valves, and it needs to be handled manually through a man there. So you need like 10 people to control the field. Now, what is happening here in Texas is that people are putting cameras on those valves. And these cameras are actually trained or, modeled to capture screenshots of those valves, get the reading of the valve, and send it to the headquarters. There is just one guy reading all the values in a screen, and if the value is too much or too less, you can this model actually automatically gives you an email that, hey, this production rate is getting too much high, or the sand is getting too much. So that is where computer vision works. You are using, and it's been happening here. You can see a lot of cameras in fields nowadays, and in US, I don't know about India. They use these cameras to actually create a heat map of the field so that you can understand where it's heating too much. Is the flare really too high in the field? How much should be the flare amount, flare flare production rate, and all the stuff. If gas is leaking from any production facility or a storage facility, even in that, computer vision is helpful. They have really, really expensive cameras that I have seen, which helps in finding those gases or any warning system. And as far as NLP goes, there's a lot of I know this one application that I have gone through NLP. You can see a lot of reports which are really old, but you need to extract data from them, which will help you understand the model, get the important values, and extract the data. So people are using NLP to they just feed the PDF report inside it. Using NLP, we get all the data in some Excel or some readable format where we can extract the data using SQL or Python or any other query language. So that's where NLP has been used. That's one application that I know, but definitely there'll be more. Yeah. Anything else?
I believe so. That's it for today.
Okay. Yeah, go through all the links, notebooks, learn. It has to be self-motivated, and otherwise you won't learn. So try to experiment things. That'll be much helpful to you guys. Yeah, let's see you after 2 days. Okay. Take care, all of you. Bye.
I would like to thank you, sir, for this wonderful first session. And I hope everybody will join us in the next sessions. And good learning, I guess.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you so much, sir.